Hi, and welcome to the October 2025 monthly energy forecast. So much intense energy in September, and it went by really fast. So, what we're going to focus on this month is actually trying to slow down time, which we can do with tuning into our intuition and using the somatic expansion principles that I talk about. I'm Marisa Liza Pell, transformational intuitive guide and somatic expansion coach. So, we're going to be talking about the energies coming up for October 2025, the themes of the month, and the overarching goal for the month in terms of energy. And look at this as kind of like a weather report. Take it as it comes. This is so you can prepare your decisions and use it to your advantage and use it to benefit you and to keep you on the path to alignment, which is our goal, right? The highest path of alignment. So let's talk about September. Okay. There's so much intense energy in September. We are glad that it's finally out of the way. We had two eclipses. There was a lot of emotion, intensity, and also a heaviness around important decisions. So there was a lot going on in September, and most likely you felt the intensity of the energy impacting you in one way or another, or impacting the people around you. There was a lot going on with our patterns and our cycles, and finally feeling like in one area of life, enough is enough. So this isn't all levels of the pie chart. It's not our whole life. It's not breaking free of everything all at once. But there probably was something over the course of the month of September that you were like, maybe have dealt with. And this is the cycle that we're like dealing with at this time, the last 11 years plus four. So 11 to 15 years of a transitional cycle has been going on in the universe. Most likely, if you look back on it, you've been playing out a particular pattern or cycle during those 11 to 15 years, maybe many, right? But September, with the eclipses on both ends, probably made you really think about, okay, I've had enough of this one thing and it's time. And so now you're kind of working your way out of that pattern and cycle and slowly moving your way out of it. That's going to come with a lot of changes, right? So now if you're moving in that direction toward your highest path of alignment, it depends on the work that you've done up to this point. It depends on the personal development work you've done in the past 11 years. If you've done nothing, your acceleration is going to be slower. However, you can always step on the path and accelerate your progress at any time. If you did plant a lot of seeds, if you feel like you've done a lot of work in the past decade and nothing's been evolving, you are set to reap the rewards in October. So decisions and patterns are now evolving. And that means that your subconscious is doing one thing and your aligned, awakened, activated self and aspirational self is doing another thing. And those two things, likely at this point in time, are going to kind of be fighting for the balance of who's in charge. Either your subconscious is in charge and it's going to be taking you along the path of your patterns and fighting, hey, like let's stay in our comfort zone, let's stay where we feel stable, and let's stay where we know the road, even though the road might not be the best road. And you know that time and time again, rather than going into the unknown, stepping into something bigger where you're going to have to be, you know, stepping into being seen more, trusting more, being more vulnerable. And that's exactly what this survival self protects us against, right? So they're kind of at a tug of war at this point in time, especially if you have done a lot of work up until this point and it's now time to take some risks. And I would say to you, there are times to take risks and there are times to not take risks. And October is a time if you want to take a quantum leap, if you want to change your timeline, if you want to really step up to your highest level path that you can and raise the bar a couple levels, October is the time to do that. If you're like, hey, I want to do this September 1st, I would say, not a chance. You're not going to have a good chance of doing that at all. You're going to be exhausted all month. Don't do it, right? So that's the purpose of this forecast, is to just get you to the point where you're looking at the energies and saying, what favors me stepping into my greatest power, right? My greatest abilities and my purpose and passions and what will lead me to my mission to make the most impact in the world. And October is the month where the bigger risk you take, the bigger the reward. But that comes taking those risks comes with stepping outside of our limited nervous system capacity. And if the survival self is running the show, then it's going to keep you small. It's going to keep you in a place where you're feeling that guilt for wanting more. You're feeling that dependency with other people and wanting to put them ahead of yourself, deprioritizing yourself, right? In order to really do this, you're going to have to trust other people. You're going to have to make bigger decisions for yourself, and you're going to have to make decisions kind of in a vacuum where you're like, well, other people's needs aren't first anymore, because if I'm the best version of myself, I can serve my family, my friends, the greater good in a better way, right? So, you most likely started making decisions regarding stepping out of your comfort zone around the first week of September or even September 1st, and may have decided, like I said, that one pattern or cycle is done for all. And it could be like just a minor thing, but it has a major impact on your life, right? So, like I said, the pattern would have at least followed over the past 11-year period. So, you might want to think back to that as well. And you will have probably found at this point in time a silver lining that is the next layer of patterning that you're working on now. With the somatic expansion work and increasing that inner capacity, we have to resolve these patterns in layers in a certain order through the chakra system. And we can't really skip layers, right? We can't just go to our emotional wounding because that's where all the protections are, right? We have to kind of start on the outer layers. And so, right now, if you're stepping out of one pattern, that means you're moving down a layer, and then you're working on the next layer of expansion within yourself. And if you want to learn more about that, I will put the description in the video, and we have the somatic expansion workshop to learn more about why your nervous system and your intuition might be at odds. And if those two things are at odds, it's going to be really hard for you to, number one, hear your broadcast all the time, hear your intuition all the time. And number two, even if you do get that download, it's going to be hard for you to expand big enough to actually take the leap because your survival self is telling you to stay in your comfort zone, right? So that's where the somatic expansion work becomes the foundation for everything, for your intuition being broadcast at all times, having the GPS on at all times, knowing where you're going. Imagine that you're going on a trip these days, you know your GPS on. You just have to kind of have to wing it, ask people for directions along the way, print out some MapQuest things from 1980, or that was 1985, but in the early 2000s, right? It'd be really hard for you to get to where you're going, and you probably have a lot of detours, and you'd probably get really frustrated and tired. You might even turn around. Where if you had that GPS on, you know the exact best way to go. You know where there's traffic, blah, blah, blah. So the important thing is keeping your intuition on at all times. Everybody has a different degree of intuition, right? You're born with it, naturally gifted. And if you're highly sensitive, you have a higher degree of it as well. So you need to know what your strength is going into your path of alignment. Now, I have a quiz to tell you what that is. If you go into the description of the video, you can take my quiz. But I will tell you that if your survival self is running the show, which most of the time, if you're watching this, that's where you are or what you're moving out of, your intuition and your strengths will grow and deepen to the point where if you take the quiz a year from now and you've done a lot of somatic expansion work, that result is going to be different. I know. So there's things that are kind of blocked in terms of how strong the intuition is and what unique gifts are presenting themselves. So right now though, the good thing is there's a silver lining, and there may just be some hope in your heart and in your soul that you can have the life that you do envision on the inside and having it match the outside. No matter what age, what ability level, or where you are in life, alignment is alignment, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have anything to do with, you externalizing any of those things, right? This is not all patterns, okay? This is not just your whole life, you're breaking a pattern and then you're free. This is one pattern I'm talking about that you've realized in September that you are either wanting to actively work on in October, or you've taken many tiny steps out, or you realize that there's the door and I need help opening it and stepping in. So, to understand why you feel stuck and to understand what's holding you back, sometimes you do need that light bulb to go off. You need that mindset shift as to why right now is the time to really look at your survival based self. And you don't want to waste any more time, because October is the month where you could really reap the big rewards. And in order to step into a bigger life, in order to really rise to the peak of that mountain, you're going to need more capacity. It's just the way it is. A lot of people, I think, think, well, if I have more intuition, then, or I'm able to listen to my gifts more, then that's going to get me to where I want to go. And that's really only the beginning. And in my method now, we don't go into intuition until the second track. Okay. We have three tracks that we deal with. One is somatic expansion, which is the foundations. And then intuition is second, because without grounding and balancing in your body, that intuition is going to be spotty. And it's also going to be used as a form of protection for the outside world rather than using it to up level your life. Two different things. So if you're looking to play laser tag with energy, then great, intuition could come first. If you're looking to use it as a solid foundation and you're looking to turn the volume up and listen to that broadcast all the time and always be on the path to highest alignment and divine timing in your life, then somatics does have to come first. So I developed a very simple 3-step system that is all laid out step by step in order of why that's all important. And it takes you through and it all builds upon each other. And you can find that link in the description of this video to get started with that. Now, we talked about this is not all patterns, this is one pattern. So, next, you would start now, October 1st, starting now, to call back the timeline in which these patterns first emerge. So, when we step out of, oh, I just saw that go across the screen. That was weird. When we first start to step out of a pattern, it's like we're coming out of a trance, right? We're coming out of a skipping record. It's coming out of a loop. And there was a timeline that we were moving through in our life and different things that were happening and going on. And it was almost like when the pattern started, a lot of those things came to a halt. That movement came to a halt. And instead of moving this way, things started to move this way. So once we start to call back the timeline where the patterns first emerged by actually starting to move out of the pattern, a lot of those things from that timeline now restart again. So it's kind of like you got off the ride a long time ago and now you're getting back on the ride, right? And start to finish the ride. And so some of those people, places, things are going to come back to have you experience them from where you left them, but from a deeper level of involvement and from a level where you are in a deeper place with yourself and your personal development is now even stronger. You know yourself better. You've had all this life experience. So now you're picking up where you left off on your divine timeline before you were kind of stuck on this pathway over here going around in circles and in that skipping record and revisiting those situations and those destiny points where really you may have to go a little deeper with that. So if you are feeling like this resonates with you and you're seeing these patterns happening and you are reconfiguring your timelines and preparing for this leap, it would have started over the past 2 weeks. So you would have seen a lot of that patterning occurring. So new decisions that you're making are causing you to question your intuition now more than ever before. Why is this? Okay. So a lot of intuitive people are coming to me saying, man, I could trust my intuition all the time. Why am I making decisions lately? And I'm completely wondering and going back and forth like, did I make the right choice? Did I make the right decision? It's because when you're making decisions on a new timeline, the subconscious isn't really aware of where it's going. And that creates space for the protections to come back on and for you to really start to, not trust yourself, because you can trust yourself in the roads that are familiar, but the roads that are unfamiliar, that's where the protections do come back on. And when you make that commitment and decision to start moving out of the pattern, that's when it's kind of like you're not in rehearsal anymore. Like you're in the play, but the show has begun. So the director has stepped back, went backstage, and they're like, it's your show. And so when you make decisions in this new configuring of your timeline, you are making healthier decisions, but your subconscious isn't used to that. Your subconscious is used to, oh, I'm making decisions, which I know are all these red flags, but yet I know the road. So it's comfortable in knowing, yeah, I made these decisions. I saw the red flags, but it's like my pattern. But when you start making decisions that are in alignment with reconfiguring a timeline and taking this big leap in your life, you're going to really question everything because now there's nothing to grab onto internally because you trusted the familiar path that you knew, which may or may not have been the best part of the pattern, right? It was the pattern. So now that you're stepping out of the pattern, you're not knowing which way to go, right? So, really important. New decisions that you're making are causing you to question your intuition now more than ever before because you're choosing from a place of starting over and not reliving the same pattern that you finally completed. So that's really all in a nutshell what it's all about. So some decisions were made in illusion during the first 2 weeks of September, and it was clear that you were unclear about it then. Okay. You used your intuition for healthier decisions, but the survival based self doesn't know these decisions. Like we just talked about that. So it starts to mistrust the externals since the nervous system is only comfortable with familiar patterns. So if you're moving into this higher timeline, you likely would have made very important and different decisions in the areas of career, finance, or any events that you have, but yet may have questioned yourself the whole time. And when patterns went against your survival based self, it required more trust of yourself and other people. And that caused quite a stir within the presence of your survival based self and also the distrust of your newly awakened self now taking its place, right? So there's a lot of distrust all around going on between these two selves that have been kind of wondering, like, who's the leader now? Who's stepping back and who's the leader? So with clarity coming back around, and I think you've probably had a few disappointments in the past couple weeks as well under your belt because of the illusions of the eclipse, maybe from some shiny objects you tried to chase in the discomfort. Reality is coming to the forefront over the next couple of days. Especially, you're going to feel a lot calmer. Those are days to really do some exploration and to go into a lot more self-care than usual because you definitely have been through it. And sometimes when we think about healing or expansion or moving toward our goals and we kind of like our tunnel vision to that, it could kind of get overwhelming after a while. And sometimes, in order to be more productive and in order to be more focused, we need a break. And so, I would say, key timeline is this week, starting from tomorrow. Give yourself a week, probably till the 7th. I would say it's a good time for some time to rest and for some time off because not much is going to be happening because of this internal calibration of the system. If you don't allow your system to integrate and calibrate, you're not going to really feel the integration, number one, and be able to be focused and refill your tank to be able to do the work you need to do to ascend the peak of the mountain. Here's some interesting stuff that I think is going to be coming over the next 2 weeks, about until the 14th of October. You will find a revisiting of some of the original people, places, things, and creative opportunities which came your way almost at the same point in time, 11 to 15 years ago, right? But now you are approaching these destined points with more depth, knowledge of yourself too, and experience. And due to the veering off of the path that you may have taken and moving through a very transformational decade, you are now being presented with opportunities to revisit what your creative and highest aspirational self wants you to. And this will be from a much more aligned place, depending on how much you can trust yourself to lead and how much you have quelled the survival based self to take a back seat. If you want to learn more about the survival based self, going into the description of the video, I'm going to have some links in there. And I have a few workshops for the fall that go over exactly why this is going to be important, not only for October, but for your expansion over the course of the next year. So make sure you go into the link in the description to start to get on that pathway and take some action. Now, how do you do this, right? What do you do? Intellectual knowledge is not going to get you anywhere right now. You do this through somatic expansion work first, before even the intuitive work, right? Meaning work to get back into the body so that you are connected to the DNA and the mission of what you came here to do. And we have to do that in the body and not the mind. That's where the information is. That's where our life path knowledge is. That's where our divine inspiration is. It's in the core. And if we're just living from up here, we cannot access anything beyond that we're just using our intuition to basically scan our environment in the world to see who we can trust and who we can't and what's a good thing or what's not. But it's basically scanning people in our environment rather than trusting ourselves, right? So that disconnection needs to be reconnected now if you're going to take advantage of the October energy. So you're also going to do this through your connection to a more steady flow and broadcast to your inner experience and intuition. But that second intuition has to turn back on. And I have a video on YouTube where I go over what the second intuition is. Much more important than the first intuition, which is just all the scattered energy up here and our intuition for the outside world. So when the survival self steps away from the helm, then we're able to access that inner intuition much more freely and readily when we want it. So the question remains, and you have to ask yourself this question: will you step off the production line of time passing you by, Groundhog Day every day, and disconnection, people pleasing, always being there for others, and having guilt if you take the time for yourself? And also feeling an obligation, like if you don't do the things that other people who need you want you to do, that's like a failure or something in life. But sometimes we have to step back for other people to step into their purpose because they have to learn certain things about how to step out of their patterns, right? And if we're constantly just picking other people up, we're actually taking on their lessons and they can't learn what they need to learn. So it all depends on how willing you are to step back into the body, out of the mind, and accelerate your intuition to use it as a GPS every day and not just for specific times when you think you need it most. So it would be good to get started to take my quiz to see what your strength is now and how it could evolve over the course of your expansion journey. So this will be a test of the new leap you're taking. Will you trust yourself now to take that leap, or will you stay in safety and comfort? And the risks you take in October and the bigger courage you have to take the quantum leaps, the higher and more transformative the rewards are going to be. So basically, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. I mean, it's right here. Now, this isn't just for this month that you're going to have these rewards. This actually extends for the next year and a half period, but the risks you take in October will actually be the rewards that continue over the next year and a half period. So take advantage of this amazing opportunity and take some action this month. So if you say, like, whatever, and you make decisions for yourself and not other people or for other people, you will be well on your way to getting everything you have wanted in the last 10 to 15 years. There's a lot of gifts coming your way in October. And this isn't just because the energy is like aligning all of a sudden. The rewards are coming from what you've built and attained during the past 11 to 15 year period of what I call the elevation period. And so the October theme is get back on that shiny ride. And you're finding your way out little by little and getting back on the ride and going back and revisiting those destiny points to get you back to your path of alignment. And this is really where October is taking you. So this is a really very in-depth message for this month's forecast. So I'm going to leave you with that for now. I'd love to hear about your experience with September moving into October. So please, in the comments, let me know how this resonates with you. And if you are a member inside of Mastering Momentum with Marisa, you're going to be getting my full page guide with all the dates of the month and all the energies coming up for every day in October in the next few days. So we will see you in November. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the month.